Welcome to Minerva Meets. I'm your host, Sonal Chandler, and this is episode 9. Today we're going to talk about Extended Detection Response, otherwise known as XDR. And joining me is Trenelle Pierce, who's a resident expert in cybersecurity and brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion. Trenelle has spent the last 8 years exclusively with Cytelex Corporation, a woman-owned cybersecurity company that provides a platform where GRC and XDR meet. Earning her MBA from Chapman University, Trenelle has found her knack for interacting with companies of all sizes to discuss their cyber concerns, company security initiatives, mandate, and rollout plans to suit. She drives partnerships for market verticals such as manufacturing, education, supply chain, higher education, financial service sectors, and small to medium enterprises seeking to improve their cyber posture. Welcome to the show, Trenelle. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here with you today.
So XDR, now this is something that I was introduced from conversing with you. And so as soon as we started talking about this, I wanted to have you on the show so that you can talk a little bit more and help me educate my audience about this topic. So can we dive in and first can you tell us what is XDR?
It really depends on how we perceive it, right? I mean, it has
Yeah.
a million different definitions for sure, which is always fun with cybersecurity.
Yeah.
There's an acronym for everything, and it means something different for everyone.
Yeah.
But at its simplest forms, XDR, Extended Detection and Response, is truly just a cloud delivered technology that really correlates and really takes telemetry of a bunch of different tools to give a client or a business a full picture into their security risk and vulnerabilities. So right now, if you think about it, a lot of people are buying point services, let's say EDR or a GRC tool, to do
Mhm.
something specifically that they need. But the ongoing cadence of being aware of what threats are evolving, what are some new risks you have, what are your blind spots? That's
Mm.
something that happens every single day. And I think XCR has done a great job being able to identify that very early on to reduce the risk of it spreading throughout a network. So, at its simplest form,
Gotcha.
like I said, that is what it is. It gives a very much more accurate picture because if you think about it, it's correlating everything. So, this is
Yeah.
this is one of those situations where you want a lot of cooks in the kitchen because it
Yeah.
helps
Yeah.
versus just having one thing and thinking it's doing everything. That's never true in cybersecurity.
Sure. So then, is this a technology that's sort of evolved over time, or is it new? Tell me a little bit about that.
I don't think it's new. I think we just never named it properly, right?
Yeah.
So people may have called it continuous monitoring or log management. It's had so many pieces involved again with it that
Hmm.
people have kind of named it. This is my all-encompassing tool,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what
Yeah.
it's supposed to do. But it's been around. It's definitely been around because the tools that are included inside of it are tools that people are using now and have been using.
Gotcha. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how it integrates into various like security layers. Whether it's endpoints, networks, cloud applications. How does it bring everything together?
Yeah, so great question with that. That is the part that I think when I say that everyone has a different definition of XDR really comes into
Hmm.
play
Yeah.
because it's so many pieces. If you think about, again, the GRC side of it, kind of the assessment, where are you in real time? You think about vulnerability management tools, right, that are scanning the network for vulnerabilities against a bunch of different threats. Then you have EDR, everyone, that's another big acronym right
Hmm.
now,
Yeah.
endpoint
Yeah.
detection and response. That's great, but that's for the endpoints, right? And it sits on the network on those endpoints. So there are still things are missing from that picture. Then you
Hmm.
have SEMs, right? Log management
Hmm.
tools. That again, that total collaboration of all those tools gives the client the full picture of where are our blind spots. More importantly, how many of them we have, how are they
Yeah.
evolving, what are threats that now may have not been a concern of us before, but is now a concern now given the landscape, right? Because it's evolving.
Yeah.
So those things correlated allows a client to really see what is really happening again accurately and having that full visibility because without it, you have no idea what your
Yeah.
risks are.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of folks I think get a bit confused because I always ask myself, just as a person in the community, it's like, why would I go out and buy a tool or technology without even knowing my risk, right? Like, what
Mm.
is a concern to me? So I think that's what happened. What has happened when you think about XDR is now it's a trending topic. People are like, hey, I
Hmm.
want it. But again, why? It has to have the why behind it because your risks and your concerns are going to be different than your, the next door neighbor, next door business
Yeah.
concerns along the way.
Absolutely. So, I think that kind of brings us to talking about a little bit of the key features, right? I think you highlighted what it does, how does it fit into my organization? But then, what are some of the key features that I, as a small business or even just a larger company, would want to take advantage of when it comes to XDR?
Yeah, great question. So there are a good number of things to include here, but I would say the top ones, of course, that vulnerability management and scanning is very important. 24/7, 365 monitoring, right? Because again, we can scan today and everything looks great,
Hmm.
all rainbows and puppy dolls, right? It's great.
Right. Yeah.
And then one thing unpatched or not serviced properly can literally create a host of problems for our environment.
Yeah.
That's really important. I love SEMS because of
Hmm.
the fact that it's logging all of the activity of every device on a network. Yes, it's intrusive, but it's giving a client and organization again a full picture of what's happening, and giving the remote landscape now of a lot of companies. If they're providing devices, they want to make sure they can see and have access to restrict things on those computers. But in
Hmm.
case an employee possibly goes rogue, being able to shut it down and know what was taken, know what was compromised in a short amount of time. Because the truth about it is, the reason why all these tools have evolved and why they're again trending now is we're trying to get to resolution quicker, right?
Yeah.
That's really why. So
Yeah.
to get to resolution quicker, you have to have a full picture. And if you don't have
Hmm.
that, you're piecemealing it. And piecemealing it again has led to a lot of breaches, hacks, vulnerabilities, compromises. So now I think the market is finally turning its ear to, wait a second, I need the full meal. I don't
Yeah.
need the appetizer. I
Yeah.
don't need the dessert. I need the full meal, because without the full meal, I can't gauge how serious something is, right?
Yeah.
Because you need all the pieces. So that's kind of the evolution I've definitely seen the last 8 years for
Yeah.
sure.
And what's interesting, and I always like to pause and tell our listeners that when we talk about these things like cybersecurity and threats and things, this really isn't meant to say it's doom and gloom out there,
No,
but more to help educate our audience about how to protect themselves, right? Because these things actually are happening and they're happening at a rapid pace. So I think it's really important, especially the small to mid-sized companies, right? Because larger corporations have entire teams and departments that are focusing on these things, but the smaller ones are the ones that need help understanding that yes, it is going to happen to you at some point. Hopefully not, but if you've protected yourself correctly, then it can save you from completely going under as an organization.
and I think you hit on something that's really important too. I keep mentioning blind spots, right? And
Hmm.
the blind spots today are not going to be the same ones tomorrow
Yeah.
or next week or a month from now.
Yeah.
So when I always talk about cybersecurity, I always emphasize the fact that it's not point in time.
Yeah.
Point in time is as good as, again, the current meal we have, right? I love
Yeah.
the food analogy,
I
but
love
it's
that
not
too,
gonna
by the way.
it's not gonna satisfy us next tomorrow or next week, right? You have to keep refueling, right?
Yeah,
Refueling. And
exactly.
that's what blind spots create. So more importantly, that's why extended detection and response, like the title alone gives it away.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
need to have extended detection, because point in time is just not going to suffice these days, not with all the advancements in technology, but also the advancements in bad folks. People are
Yeah,
trying the
I was
bad
gonna say
stuff.
these hackers are getting just smarter, right? So,
Exactly. They're not waiting
yeah.
behind. Like they're not
Yeah.
behind the ball here. They're ahead in a lot of
Exactly,
ways.
exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit about how XDR helps in detecting and responding to threat. You're kind of explained this
Mhm.
unification of
Exactly.
all these different technologies, but how does it really, if you could kind of help us understand how it helps in detecting and responding?
Yeah. So great question. So that whole telemetry of all these different things I mentioned, right? The tools that really make up the behind the box of XDR.
Hmm.
None of that works well without having what's called a security operations center, right? You have to
Hmm.
have either internal team members or external that are having the eyes and ears on the network to be able to correlate that, right? Almost
Yeah.
storytelling. Like, hey, we saw this trigger, then we saw that trigger. Wait, and then we saw this open. This is not normal cadence for this organization. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that we as a company have realized. That's the part that a lot of tool providers are missing, like selling the tool, getting it going, but then where is the again the ongoing eyes and ears of being able to say, hey, this is not normal. This is strange.
Hmm.
Because again, as I mentioned, the whole goal of this is to get to remediation quicker, right? So
Yeah.
it doesn't penetrate an organization further than it needs to, right? If it's just that one device, let's just put that one device, off the network and get it fixed. But when it starts spreading, again, because if you're just having all these tools running, no one's paying attention to the alerts, what's going off, or again, creating that story behind it. Like, why is it
Yeah.
happening the way it's happening? Is this concern? Is this an accurate, true event, or is this a false positive? There has to
Right.
be people doing a lot of that behind the scenes. So it's a combination of people and tools that are needed.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times in cybersecurity, it has become such a check the box that people think, hey, I have the tool running, I'm
Yeah.
safe. And that's
Yes.
not true. It's just not
Exactly.
true.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's why use cases are created. That's why triggers happen. That's why alerts are created, because every alert was created for every single thing. There'll be so many more hacks or breaches, right? Because everything will be having
Mm-hmm.
unnecessary attention.
Yeah.
So again, that correlation combined with having professionals and analyze what's going on is what really makes this whole
Yeah.
meal come together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I love that analogy and I love the point that you just made about there's one thing about having the tool and having it in your system, but then if you're not necessarily watching it, learning how it's behaving and how it's helping your organization, it does just because you have the tool doesn't mean you're protected, right?
Exactly. It's just like, our parents and my family's from the Caribbean, and, they make great food, right? But their handwritten recipes, you can't just follow it and think you're gonna get the same meal that they cooked, right? They have all the
Yeah.
extra stuff, the extra spice or the
Yes.
pinch of this or pinch of that we're missing. And that's why I think a lot of times how people have the recipe, like here are things you need to be doing, but they're not executing it the way it should be executed. So you don't get the same results. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I love that. Let's keep going with this like cooking theme.
Like I'm hungry now,
I
but
know,
yes.
right? So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of using XDR over some of those traditional cyber security methods, right? So let's talk about the two differences.
Yeah, so that's always a tough one to share more details about, because every organization is so uniquely different, right?
Yeah,
I've worked
yeah,
with manufacturers where they may have had 200 employees, but only five of them are using a machine, right? A lot of maybe on a shop floor, etc.
sure.
So their
Yeah.
vulnerabilities are a lot less because they have less devices. Then I've
Mm-hmm.
worked with companies that have well over, let's say, 50 employees, and everyone has 2 to 3 devices each, and they travel a lot.
Yeah,
So vastly different, right? You would think, okay, more employees, more problems, less employees, less problems. But in this situation, it's reversed, right? Because of
right.
what the number of devices that are in that network. So again, it's kind of difficult to share what works best. What I will say is that because we've gotten so far with the check the box of cybersecurity,
Mm-hmm.
XDR is finally being the kind of the culmination of all these things coming together, saying, hey, XDR is going to paint this perfect picture that's
Yeah,
accurate, right? Because again, I
yeah,
think a lot of times people are deterred from cybersecurity tools because you're about the accuracy. Like, who's validating this? Is this
yeah,
true? Is this, should I be paying attention to this? Do I really need this? Right? That always comes up. Do I really need
yeah,
this? And then again, XDR, because of all the things that it's correlating across all these tools, technologies, and environments, it's finally giving that, what we refer to at Cytelix is like that single pane of glass view. Like,
yeah,
here's everything in one place that I can see, and it's been validated. That's the part. It's
yeah,
been validated. It's already saying, yes, this is true. Pay attention.
yeah,
Or, hey, that's not true. Don't waste your time chasing, that rabbit down a hole.
yeah.
So those are things. But again, that one's a little difficult to explain because environments are so different.
Yeah, no,
Like,
absolutely. Completely. That makes complete sense. Well, let's move on to some of the challenges and considerations, right? So I'm a client and I want to have XDR integrated into my organization. When it comes to compatibility and integration, what are some challenges around that I should be thinking about when I'm considering an integration like this?
yeah, so many things to take into consideration there, but a couple of things that come to mind is your current environment, but if you're planning on changing your environment, right? So some
Hmm.
folks are still on prem, right, in their environment,
Yes. Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're saying, "Hey, I want to move to the cloud, or I want to be air gapped," or we work with a lot of supply chain contractors, and they're just transforming. Hey, I need to have a FedRAMP environment. I need to have a GovCloud environment. So again, it's kind of painting the picture, kind of when you think about project management of here you are now, but where's your goal? Where do you want to be, right? And we have some clients that are in rapid growth season, right? They're acquiring companies, bring on new
Yeah.
employees. Well, the advice we give you is going to be a little bit different than someone says, hey, I have no intention of changing in the next 5 years. I want to stay
Yeah.
like this, no growth plans. And of course, that's very, that's not common of clients, but sometimes it is for some companies that have kind of been tried and true.
Hmm.
So when you think of that, you think about, have you identified where your important stuff is? Like
Yeah.
where is your PI, right? Where is your CUI? Where is your stuff stored that's most important? Like this is where are the crown jewels of the company. Do you even know what that is? So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah.
first on the high priority list of let's identify where's our important stuff. Is it a database? Where is that database stored? Who has
Hmm.
access to that? So I always say that's a great starting point of identifying what's important to you as an organization,
Hmm.
kind of kind of almost ranking them in a way, and then from there saying let's start talking about who can access it, who can make changes to it, who can extract it, right? Like who can
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
all these things are so important because that is what the hackers and breachers are looking for. And when you think
Yeah.
about it, that's
Absolutely.
your crown jewel. So those are really important. And then you think about if you have remote teams, how are they accessing the environment? I surely hope they're not in Starbucks or on their cruise ships while on vacation responding to emails. I hope that's not the case, but you'll be surprised at how people are like, oh yeah, I worked from the cruise I was on. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, using their Wi-Fi. Okay. For your company's important data. Okay. Well, I had
Yeah.
to respond to this email. Okay. Well, now you've made everyone vulnerable because you respond to this email.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, those are things if remote workforces, they have VPNs, there's private networks happening. Um, when they come into the office, is the Wi-Fi set up for a guest and then also employees, all these little things that seem little and minute. You'll be amazed when you look on the news. Those are things that are causing the biggest hacks or breaches, like things that are just simple,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Password managers, right? Access
Right.
control, these different things. So those are a couple of things I would highlight here that are great starting points. Because
Hmm.
again, if you don't know so much of your risk, if you don't know what's most important to you as a company, how do you know what to protect?
Yeah.
Right?
So basically, what I think you're saying, and the rule is, right, go after your most vulnerable and critical assets, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
then, start there. And then you can sort of add and adjust as you start learning more about how your organization operates. But let's get the most critical things secured first.
Exactly.
Let's talk about data management. So, how does data management relate to XDR? Is that a challenge I even need to worry about as an organization? Tell me more about data management and XDR.
Yeah, great question. So of course XDR is going to it's much more intrusive than just a monitoring tool, et cetera. Because again, it's looking at all these different connection points and data points. When it comes to data management, it kind of goes back to what I said a little bit ago is identifying where the important things are. And again, knowing who
Yeah,
has access to it and how do they access it. It should be some levels of access control, right? Like if I'm
sure.
trying to access our most important document, I shouldn't just be able to sign in with my password. I'm getting set. It should be some other levels, two-factor authentication. Someone else
Hmm.
approves it. They need to know how long I was on there. It needs to be some tracking of that stuff because that's our important documents as a company. So things like that really matter. Data is always going to be the crux for a lot of organization, honestly,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
depending on the size and depending on the industry, it can be so much data being passed through a day that if
Yeah.
you're not taking care of it right, of course you have encryption tools, which I'm definitely pro for that when you're passing important data back and forth. But that's important, right? Because again,
Hmm.
it's your most
Yeah.
important parts of your company. It's nothing you can, in essence, be lax on. You need to be
Yeah.
almost hypersensitive to like, who am I sending this to? A partner? Okay, let's make sure that partner's secure. Let me make sure I encrypt it. Let me make sure it's protected. Make sure
Hmm.
that there has a deadline on when they have to use it and it gets erased or something. It needs to have that level of again security behind it because it's so important. So again, data management. We could speak an hour on that alone because it's such a problem for organizations because we're so used to having things easily accessible and passing things back and forth and not
Yeah.
thinking about, hey, was this really important? Should I
Yeah.
just send this an email? Should I have encrypted it and put it? People are not thinking about that. Just trying to get things done. But again, that's what hackers and breachers are looking for us to do. Like,
Hmm. Well, I mean, a lot of it also has to do with the training, right?
oh yeah,
Giving your employees proper training so that they understand, hey, don't send this on an email, or don't download
exactly,
this information to your computer.
exactly.
But do I need to go through a vigorous like data prep activity before I do an integration, an XDR integration? How does that work? And I know I'm kind of going a little further into the data space. So feel free to tell me, hey, let's talk about this on another episode. But at the highest level, is it hard to get ready from a data perspective before I integrate XDR?
Great question. So a lot of that's going to come up in discovery. So the tools
Yeah.
will find it, and then it becomes a question of, has it been segmented properly?
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Yeah.
where it should be, right? Is it,
Yeah.
again, the access control points, is it on the same environment as your accounting or finance system? And it shouldn't be. So discovery is going to be, that's the part, and the fine tuning in the beginning and the spin up of use case and all that. That is really where the heavy lifting is, especially in the beginning, because we're discovering usually 10 to 20% more things on the network than the client knows about when we're doing
Oh
our
gosh,
discovery.
yes.
So
I
so the
completely
discovery
agree.
is fun because we're like,
Yeah.
no, Trenelle, I promise you, I know
Yeah.
this. And then we scan, they're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that other location, or I forgot about this, or I forgot
That
about this
machine
employee
from the late 1980s is still on our network.
that we haven't patched,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in discovery, that's where all that comes up. So that's why it's so important again to have such a great MSSP like ourselves
Hmm.
that is able to do all that work, because that's so important. You can't miss steps there. The discovery is the most important part in the beginning for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Okay, so let's get down to it and talk about, is this sort of the Cadillac of cybersecurity tools, or, what are the cost implications? I'm a small organization and I want something that I can implement and help me kind of monitor all of it because I don't have a big staff. Am I going to be
Mhm.
breaking the bank when it comes to XDR?
Yeah, you shouldn't, right? Because your environment's small. So
Hmm.
when it comes to any of these tools, it's all around the environment size, server size, number of devices that are being monitored. So you shouldn't. It's going to be, what tools are you comfortable with having run in the background? Because there's so many tools that, in essence, are part of XDR. So if you want a lower cost SIEM or a lower cost EDR, sure, go with that. But then again, you have to think about, well, my use cases may be more limited. What the tool can do may be more limited and restricted. If you're
Hmm.
okay with that, a small organization, perfect. And then at some point, upgrade to a more um, a tool set that's more capable or more has more options for you. But I
Hmm.
tell folks, like, it should never break the bank. I think the way cybersecurity again has gotten a little misconstrued is everyone thinks it's so expensive. And I always say, like, okay, well, let's not do cybersecurity. Let's say you get hacked or breach. Can you afford to recover from that? Which one
Yes.
is more expensive? I imagine having the proper cybersecurity things in place and then having the right cyber insurance in place is going to save you your business if a
Yeah.
hacker breach happened, because you've done what
Especially
you
the
could do,
smaller ones, right? Because one
especially.
one small, misstep can take you completely out of business.
And I always compare people, especially because I work for a lot of small medium business. I always give the comparison of, you bought a really nice house. I'm from Southern California, so bought a nice house in Laguna Hills, and it's on a hill. And
Yeah.
we have mudslides, et cetera. And you say, I'm just going to buy this really nice home for $1 million. I'm not going to make sure that things are secure in there. I'm going to make sure that the house is nice, but I can care less about the foundation. I care less about insurance on it. I just have a nice house. You can have really nice business, looks great, social media hits, and everyone loves it. But
Yeah.
you're not doing what you're supposed to do behind the scenes, and it gets hacked or breached. And you have to communicate that to your clients and customers. Do you
Yeah.
really think they're going to come back to you because you were a great business? No, they're going to go to your competitor that has proven they're secure and their data hasn't been leaked to them. So
Yeah.
exact same concept here is, it's a cost. It's not even a cost. It's an investment of doing business. It's one
Yeah.
of those things where you have to have it if you're serious about it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, you mentioned earlier that cybersecurity is constantly changing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what you see as a threat today will be different tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So how does scaling and maintenance work when it comes to XDR?
Yeah, exact same concept of, if there's more devices, more servers being added, more connection points, right? That there
Hmm.
is going to be a difference in cost there, right? It shouldn't be extreme unless you're acquiring three or four new companies, along the way in
Right.
the
Yeah.
same month. But it should be incremental, right? It should not be every time you're adding devices, you're seeing a bill for a massive amount. No, it should not. Again, it should not be that way. But the truth about it is, we're here now in terms of cybersecurity land with XDR. The next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be something else that's being added, right? It's
Yeah.
always enhancements happening. That's the good part about it. It's never stagnant because it can't be. I
Yeah.
think we got to get comfortable with that, just like with our own businesses. I hope we've all evolved, right, over the
Yeah.
years. I hope we added new services and became better as business owners and such. But the same exact thing with technology, right? If you think, I think about me going to college and technology I use there to what I use now.
Yeah.
My college must be so much easier now, with all the access to resources. So same exact concept with technology, with cybersecurity. It's going to keep evolving because the goal is, as I mentioned earlier, to get to remediation faster. When something is
Hmm.
found, finding a quicker, discovery quickly, and then recovering quickly. Like everyone wants
Yeah.
to get to recovery quickly, but you can't get there if you can't discover it faster. So
Yeah.
again, the evolution of that is only going to keep happening.
Sure. Yeah. Let's kind of talk about, because this concept was new to me. And so as we kind of talk about the trends and the future, what are some future developments in XDR technology that you're seeing? What are your thoughts on some of that?
Great question. Outside of like, I would say what we're seeing enhancements in the SEM portion of XDR, so the use cases.
Hmm.
Gartner has a great write about that, about the different SEMs and the fact that providers are needing to correlate all these data points, right? Like literally Gartner told us like having GRC meet XDR is so unique to market because they've initially previously been sold independently, but they
Hmm.
should be talking to each other. If you think about the GRC side of it, and you say, okay, I got my assessment done, I know my vulnerabilities are, that's for today, right?
Yeah.
Again, it does not suffice for tomorrow. But then with us, supporting hundreds of clients, we realize that they don't want point in time. Yes, they want to have a sanity check of where am I? The truth about
Yeah.
it is they want to know what happens tomorrow and who's looking at that for me because I'm busy running my business. I don't have time to be looking
Yeah.
at this. But if I have a team that's doing that for me all the time,
Hmm.
at least I can rest a little easier. I can rest and
Yeah.
say, okay, like I have someone looking at this. So GRC has become this check the box, and it never should have been. But
Hmm.
again, that's the rush when it comes to technology, especially when it comes to organizations having to invest in tools that, in essence, isn't going to give them an immediate ROI. It's going to be
Hmm.
a differentiator for them, but not an ROI. It's like a sale, right?
Yeah.
It's different. It becomes a what do I need? How do I get it done quickly and move to the next thing?
Yeah.
The enhancement with XDR is like the use cases. I mean, the use cases are incredible of what we've seen and what we created for some of our clients' organizations. I mean, people have all kind of issues inside the organization. They say, "Hey, can we
Sure.
create a use case for this one?" And you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, wow! I never would have thought about that." Of course, you have canned ones that come with it, but it's like you
Right.
have so many options now of really being able to have full visibility, right? Not
Hmm.
even partial, and not just at the level of an IT person or a tech person. The C-suite, the CFO
Yeah.
wants to know this thing, the COO wants to know, the CEO wants to know, and having the views and reporting accessible for that level of leadership, that's digestible,
Yeah.
right? It's not jargon that they're like, I need a technology handbook of acronyms to
Right.
read through this.
Yeah.
They're able to actually read it and say, okay, I understand where my company is. I know where our risks are. I know where still need to invest a budget in, and I know how long it's going to take, right? No one
Yeah.
wants to be in a never ending project. So
Right.
them being
Yeah.
able to see that and to see that in real time is so important for organizations. So that's what I'm seeing in the progression. It's having more clarity for every level in the organization to know what's going on at all times, not waiting for a quarterly business report, right? The old
Right.
school way
Right.
of doing things.
Yeah.
It's like being able to say today, on this Monday, where are we? Oh, I'll
Hmm.
log in and see. Not waiting for someone to run
Absolutely.
them a report. It's really cool to see that.
Yeah. Super cool. Well, I can't have an episode of Minerva Meets without talking about AI. So, how do you see AI's role in all of this? Where are we going with AI and excuse me,
Yeah,
sorry, XDR?
yeah. So AI and machine learning, I know it's trending now, and I always laugh at hashtags as they come out, right? Things that trend really quick, and people are like, oh, it's so new. Even here at Cytelix, we've had AI and ML in our platform for well over 5 years, so it's
Oh,
not new to
wow.
us.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what it does, it enriches the data points for one,
Hmm.
and exactly what I was saying earlier, gets to discovery a lot quicker because it starts to predict what's most likely to happen in an
Hmm.
environment. And
Hmm.
the predictive side of cybersecurity is way more affordable for one, because
Yeah.
you're predicting and being proactive, right? Everyone wants to be proactive. We know reactive is very expensive.
Hmm.
So it allows a organization to start to see, based on these tickets, based on these threats that keep happening in organization, here are some likely things to happen in the future if you don't do X, Y, and Z. So it
Hmm.
allows them to have almost a head up in doing things to reduce the risk from happening by, again, having the awareness, kind of going back to what I was saying, the discovery of like, hey, this keeps happening in your environment.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
isn't good. If this keeps
Yeah.
happening, here's things that can happen as a result of that. let's teach you how to be proactive, whether you have to install something else, whether you have to change a process, whether you have to install a different technology. But again, that proactive side we hadn't seen before this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's just
Mm-hmm.
reacting. You have a scan ran, it shows these threats, you're going to remediate.
Yeah.
That's reactive, right? Let's get on the
Yeah.
proactive side. By again, that storytelling across all these tools starts to help predict what's going to happen next in this environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
that's really important.
absolutely. Are there areas, that you're seeing in XDR that you say, okay, over the next, 3 to 5 years, here's where I think XDR should evolve to sort of meet those emerging cybersecurity threats?
That's a really great question. I think there are going to be more enhancements and that's what I would call the kill switch of things.
Mm.
So, hey, this device is going rogue, or these devices are going rogue, and they're remote teams and they're in other countries, and the organization isn't comfortable with what's happening on it, and being able to, of course, similar to what EDR is doing right now, but having even a much more bigger picture into what the impact is. Because sometimes you
Yeah.
can see with EDR, hey, this device is doing something, let's shut it down. But what was the device doing a week ago? What were things
Right.
that what were some telltale signs that something was coming, right? Because
Hmm.
just because you killed that device doesn't mean that it hasn't already done other things or hasn't had other things sitting in places it shouldn't be sitting, so it can also trigger something else, right? So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that, because I think with you were talking about data earlier, with all the enhancement of data management and again the amount of data that we're sharing,
Yeah.
it's going to get pretty crazy. You hear about quantum computing coming and all these other things are set to come. If that does happen, I mean, the whole entire world is going to change with the amount of
Yeah.
data that's passed, per second, right? So
Sure. Sure.
being able to get ahead of it now, of let's be able to again follow the crumbs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like what else is
Absolutely.
happening that we should be aware of? Because yes, we killed this device, but let's hope that it hasn't done something else already. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that. That's a part to me that, my whole slogan of keeping business in business, that's something that we're going to have to really keep a close eye on, honestly.
Sure, sure. Well, this has been wonderful. And now I feel like I'm walking away from here with a little extra knowledge on what XDR is and, how it fits into my organization. And I always like to sort of wrap up our conversation by providing some key takeaways to our listeners. And I'm going to sum up what I've heard here, but please dive in and jump in and add if you'd like. But first and foremost, in terms of what it is, it's an integrated threat detection. So really brings all the tools that you use today to monitor your environment from a cybersecurity perspective into one place. So you have a single view of your entire organization, a single view of your security risks, and what you can do to help reduce those risks. And by being able to do that, then it sounds like you will have an improved incident response, right? You talked about being more proactive, versus reactive. It gives you this ability to understand, what are the downstream impacts, what machines are getting impacted, and where in your organization are there vulnerabilities. And because of all of this, you have this enhanced visibility of your entire organization when it comes to security. Did I sum that up right? Is there anything you'd like to add there?
No, I think you hit it spot on the nail. That's exactly what it is. It's really that correlation of all these things, because they can't be in a silo anymore. One
Yeah.
tool isn't going to do it all. You need to have all these different tools, but you need them talking to each other, right? You can't have them in
Hmm.
their own separate room,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
not have them communicating. So I think you hit it right on the nail, what it is.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you again. I would love to let our listeners know, where they can find more information about you and how to get in touch with you. Please let us know if you've got a website, LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, post there and engage quite a bit. So yes, my name on LinkedIn, look me up there. And then our, of course, company website has a lot about what we're doing and how we can support in our different upcoming webinars and events. So feel free to check us out. Hope to see you guys sometime soon.
Yeah, and I'll put all of Trenelle's information in the show notes. But I did also want to remind folks that if you have questions about cybersecurity or if you're interested in having your cybersecurity posture assessed, please reach out to Minerva Consulting at Let's Talk at minervaconsultinginc.com. You can also go to our website at www.minervaconsultinginc.com. And before we take off here, I want to ask our listeners to take 3 quick next steps. One, please subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss a new episode. Number two, leave a rating. And number three, please add a comment. Thank you again, Trenelle. I really appreciate having you and looking forward to having you again on our show.
Thank you so much.